Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Reckless Paradise podcast. I am your host, Dystro, and tonight's episode, it is another Career Dives episode. Now, this is the final episode for February. We already got the episodes for March already in the can. Well, not recorded in the can, but in the can that, getting brainstormed around. And it's going to be around some mania stuff, some parental stuff, shoot the shit as always. But figured end this month on a career that is a legendary career in the making. I mean, it's already been in the making. Hall of Famer. We are talking about Bret the Hitman Hart. I mean, what is there not to say about this guy? Like, he is a true pioneer of Canadian wrestling. Um, and he is one of the, if not the greatest, to ever grace the squared circle. I mean, plus, like, for majority of his career, he used the name the Hitman. Like, he'll target something and, just, stick with it. Um, he was born on July 2nd of 1957. He is 68 years old, almost 69, nice. In Calgary, Alberta, Canada. He has had three wives, and four children. And his relative is Harry Smith, which is the maternal grandfather. Um, he goes by Bret Hart, but then there's also called Buddy Hart. I'm guessing that was during maybe Stampede wrestling. He is built 6'0", 6 foot tall, 235 pounds of pure fuck sauce. I mean, like I said, what is there not to say about this guy? Built from Calgary, Alberta, Canada, trained in the infamous Hart Dungeon, and by Tsuji Atachi, and then Katsuo Sakurada, yes. Also known as the Dragon Master. That's actually a really cool nickname. Um, they both trained him. And then plus, I mean, obviously, the Stu Hart family dungeon, because, like, there's a lot of people that will say, like, if you survive the Hart dungeon, like, you'll survive anywhere. He made his debut on March 29th of 1978, which is many, many years ago, and then he has retired on September 12th of 2011. Man, I mean, like I said, what's not to say about this guy? So he is a member of the Hart wrestling family and a second generation wrestler. He has an amateur wrestling background and he was a major international draw within professional wrestling. I mean, obviously. He is credited with changing the perception of mainstream North American professional wrestling in the early 1990s by bringing technical wrestling to the forefront. He is widely regarded as one of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time. And so Bret Hart joined his father Stu Hart's promotion Stampede Wrestling in 1976 as a referee, and then 2 years later he made his in-ring debut in '78. He gained championship success during the 1980s, almost in 1880s. Wow, he's not that old. 1980s and 1990s in the WWF, where he helmed the Hart Foundation stable, which was Bret Hart, Jim the Anvil Neidhart, Owen Hart, British Bulldog, and Brian Pillman. And, if you've known the Hart Foundation for a long, long time, there's been lots of ups and downs for the whole Hart family, leading up to a lot of things that has happened in the past. I believe, yes, I think Bret Hart is the only surviving Hart Foundation member, still alive, because we've lost Owen Hart, we lost Brian Pillman, we've lost British Bulldog, and we've lost Jim the Anvil Neidhart, not many too long ago, which is, like, sad to see, because, like, if all four of them, if they were still healthy and still like, still here, I think they would bring like a lot of like wrestling knowledge to the current generation and future generations to come, like Brian Pillman with Brian Pillman Jr. You have I would believe maybe Owen Hart would be wrestling like into the 2000s, maybe 2010s at some point. Maybe before eventually like retiring the boots and all that, but he would still have a lot of knowledge. Like, I mean, I can imagine a world like if he went to TNA and he would wrestle like AJ, like holy shit, like that'd be fucking awesome. Um, so then, and plus like with British Bulldog, um, I would say like he would still have a good career. I mean, he would still probably teach his boy, David Hartsmith, Harry Hartsmith, whatever, or Junior, I should say. Um, or Davy Boy Smith Jr., if I could say that correctly. Sorry about that. Like kind of like teach him the ropes, and all stuff. And I mean, same with like Natty Neidhart, Tyson Kidd. I would believe that maybe they would be managed by Bret, like have Cesaro and Tyson Kidd being managed by Bret. Like holy shit, that'd be freaking crazy. And plus, like him managing Natty, which would be kind of awesome in itself too. So then he left for WCW following the controversial Montreal Screwjob in 1997 in November, which he remained until October 2000. He had been inactive since January 2000 owing to a December 1999 concussion, which was the Goldberg super kick heard around the world. Um, he officially retired in October 2000, shortly after his departure from the company. He returned to sporadic in-ring competition from 2010 to 2011 with WWE, where he would win his final championship, headline the 2010 SummerSlam event, which was Team Cena versus Team Nexus that year, which Team Nexus should have won, just saying. And he had served as the general manager of Monday Night Raw. Throughout his career, he had headlined the respective premier events of the WWF and WCW, WrestleMania 9, 10, and 12, and then Starrcade in 99. He was also inducted into the Wrestling Observer Newsletter Hall of Fame upon its inception in 1996, while he was still an active performer. Hart has held championship titles in 5 decades from the 1970s to the 2010s, 32 throughout his career and 17 between the WWF/WWE and WCW. Among other accolades, he is a 7-time world champion, so right now it's a 5-time WWF champion and a 2-time WCW World Heavyweight Champion. He went the most combined days of WWF champion during the 1990s, which was 654 days, and he was the first WCW World Champion born outside the United States. Excuse me. He is the second WWF Triple Crown champion and fifth with Goldberg WCW Triple Crown champion. He was a 94 Royal Rumble match winner with Lex Luger and the only 2-time King of the Ring winner, winning the 1991 champion tournament and then 93 tournament. He has co-lined multiple pay-per-view events, such as the acclaimed rivalry with Stone Cold Steve Austin from 96 to 97. He is the first wrestler to be inducted into the Hall of Fame 3 times. 2006 individually, 2019 as the Hart Foundation, and then the 2025 when his submission match with Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania 13 was inducted as an inaugural entry into the Immortal Moments category. Outside of wrestling, Hart has appeared on numerous films and TV shows such as The Simpsons, as well as featured in several documentaries, both being about himself specifically and others about his family or the wrestling industry in general. He has also helped found and lent his name to major junior ice hockey team, the Calgary Hitman. That's actually kind of cool. And has written two biographies along with a weekly column for the Calgary Sun for over a decade. After his retirement, he spent much of the time on charitable efforts concerning stroke recovery and cancer awareness due to his experience with the two, which is actually that's actually kind of cool. Hayes actually did that um, for like charitable efforts because there's a lot of people that do not know like how to recover from a stroke or how to spread awareness for cancer, which that's actually kind of cool that he did that. so um so some of the early stuff in his life, like he's the eighth child of the wrestling patriarch Stu Hart with his wife Helen. Um, and he was born into the Hart wrestling family. Of course, he is of Greek descent through his marital grandmother and Irish descent through his marital grandfather. His father was of Scottish, Irish, and English ancestry. He was a dual citizen of Canada and the United States since his mother Helen was born in New York. And then Hart has stated that he considers himself to be North American, that he is equally proud of his U.S. and Canadian nationality. His maternal grandfather was long distance runner Harry Smith. Hart grew up in a household with 11 siblings, 7 brothers. Jesus Christ. So we have Smith Hart, Bruce Hart, Keith Hart, Wayne, Dean, Ross, and Owen Hart. Of course, Owen Hart and Bret Hart, one of the famous rivalries of the all time. As well as 4 sisters, Ellie, Georgia, Allison, and Diana. So Diana Hart marries British Bulldog, which is a Smith. As a child, he was the closest with his older brother Dean, who was the nearest to him in age, as of all his older brothers, being 3 years his senior. Together, they would often fight with Bret's 2 older sisters, Ellie, who was 2 years older, and Georgia, who was 1 year older. Hart's family were non-denominational Christians, but he and all of his siblings were baptized by a local Catholic priest. His introduction to professional wrestling came at an early age. As a child, he witnessed his father training future wrestlers like superstar Billy Graham in the dungeon, his household basement, which served as a training room. Before school, Hart's father was also a wrestling promoter. He had him hand out flyers to local wrestling shows, and then also it talks about in the 1998 documentary Hitman Hart Wrestling with Shadows, he reflected on his father's discipline, describing how Stu uttered morbid words while inflicting excruciating submission holds that left broken blood vessels in Bret's eyes. Jesus Christ. Hart claimed his father had otherwise pleasant demeanor. That's crazy. That's crazy. I mean, you can't talk shit about your father. I mean, he's a wrestling legend. Um, so Hart's first work in wrestling involved pulling out lucky numbers out of a metal box during intermission at the Stampede wrestling shows when he was 4 years old. When he slightly got older, he would sell programs to the shows, something all Hart's 7 brothers would do. He would often compete for customers, with his little brother Ross, since the fans would often want to buy from the youngest Hart child. That's crazy. So then it kind of talks about his professional wrestling career in 1976. He would, begin refereeing matches, and then in 1978, he performed in a match as a replacement. Hart teamed with Hubert Galliant, which is a retired wrestler, losing to Mr. Hato and Mr. Sakurota, which is the Dragon Master, and then Mr. Hato was the Kazuji Atachi guy who helped train him. Before long, he became a regular contender, eventually partnering with his brother Keith to win the Stampede International Tag Team Championship 4 times. That's just crazy. um, so he had gained some of his most potent experience with Japanese combatants and real-life trainers, Mr. Hato and Mr. Sakaruta. He also had high impact matches against Tom Billington, which is the Dynamite Kid. And in the midst of wrestling alongside his family, Hart made a point not to ride on the shoulders of his elders, which is like nepotism. Hart faithfully jobbed as a request to him, taking pride in the believability of his performances. As he said himself, no one could take a shit kicking like Bret Hart. I mean, that's truth be told right there. Like, nobody can take a shit kicking like Bret Hart. I mean, that's a very, very valid point. Although he dreaded partaking in interviews and speaking in front of a crowd, Hart went on to win promotion's top titles, including 2 British Commonwealth Mid Heavyweight Championships, 5 International Tag Team Championships, and 6 North American Heavyweight Championships. Hart also wrestled Tiger Mask in New Japan Pro Wrestling, a promotion for whom he often wrestled during the early to mid 1980s. He remained one of Stampede's most successful performers until the promotion, along with several other wrestlers, was acquired by WWF in August of 1984. So then he would be on WWF, part of the Hart Foundation, since 1984 to 1991, teaming with his brother-in-law, Jim the Anvil Neidhart. And then he would go into a program with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, which was originally planned for WrestleMania 2. He lost to Steamboat at the Boston Garden in 1986, which was included in the 2005 DVD of Bret Hart's matches. But at WrestleMania 2, he participated in 20-man Battle Royal, which was won by Andre the Giant. He would lose to Steamboat again in 1986 on an episode of Prime Time Wrestling, but then Hart headlined his first televised WWF card when he beat Raymond Rougeau, which was the one of the fabulous Rougeau brothers, which is Jacques Rougeau and Raymond Rougeau. In the main event of the November 3rd, 1986 episode of Prime Time Wrestling. The Hart Foundation won their first of 2 WWF championships on February 7th of 87 on the episode of Superstars of Wrestling when they defeated the British Bulldogs, which was Dynamite Kid and Davey Boy Smith. Then they did team with Danny Davis to face, or they then teamed with Danny Davis to face the British Bulldogs and Tito Santana at WrestleMania 3. They won the match when Davis pinned Davey Boy Smith after hitting him with Jimmy Hart's megaphone. And then they adopted the nickname the Pink and Black, which is like a really cool nickname, which Hart continued to use after the tag team's disbandment. This was a reference to the team's ring attire, as well as Hart's signature mirror sunglasses. Jeez, I can't go without freaking hiccuping. Which he would routinely give away to a young audience member before his matches, following his face turn in 1988. I think I could be wrong, but I think since this face turn in 1988, he didn't turn heel again until when he lost. I think, or he didn't turn heel again until like he fought Austin at WrestleMania 13, and then they did the infamous double turn there. Which that's a long, long time. And um, he never injured an opponent, though any fault of his own. Throughout his entire course of his career, he only missed one show due to flight difficulties, which that's insane. And then he would only refuse to lose a match. His final WWF match with a longtime adversary, Shawn Michaels, at the Survivor Series in '97, which was the Montreal Screwjob. Um, which like, truth be told, like I wish like some things like could have changed in that moment. Um, but I mean, like it's a huge thing of history with the Montreal Screwjob, because if you think about it, Shawn Michaels was a shithead back then. And Bret Hart was just kind of trying to keep his cool, but then like cooler heads prevail. And then, like, I mean, what can you do? Like, you gotta, like, strike fire with fire, Um, so, I'm gonna talk about this right now. Around this time, Hart's on-air rivalry with Vince McMahon also escalated. A heated ringside altercation between the two led many fans to dislike McMahon, who at the time was being exposed as the WWF owner more and more frequently on air. Although Hart had signed a 20-year deal back in 1996, I mean, shit, that'd be freaking crazy. If it was a 20-year deal, his contract would run out in 2016 if that actually followed through. If that actually followed through on that. The WWF was in a rough financial position by late '97 and could no longer afford to honor the contract. Makes sense. Although Hart was arguably the biggest wrestler in the world through the mid 1990s, McMahon also felt that the value of his character was beginning to wane, and he encouraged Hart to approach WCW about a contract, hopefully one similar to the original offer. This was despite Hart's reluctance to leave the WWF and willingness to renegotiate. Hart subsequently signed a 3-year contract with WCW. His final match with the WWF would be a title match against his real-life rival, Shawn Michaels, at Survivor Series in Montreal. Hart did not want to end his WWF career with a loss to Michaels in his home country, particularly with the context of their nationality fueled feud. He did not want to lose, forfeit, or otherwise give the belt to Michaels in any other way that Vince McMahon wanted. McMahon agreed to Hart's idea of forfeiting the championship the next night on Raw's War, or losing it again, or losing it a few weeks later. Although Hart stated to McMahon that he would not want to take the championship with him to WCW television, and despite instance from then WCW President Eric Bischoff that Hart would join WCW with a clean slate. McMahon was still concerned and paranoid. This led him to break in his word in what eventually be known as the Montreal Screwjob. Although Hart did not submit to the sharpshooter, Earl Hebner, the referee, called for the bell as if he would, or had, I should say, on McMahon's orders. This resulted in Hart losing the championship to Michaels. The night ended with an irate Hart spitting in McMahon's face, destroying television equipment, and punching McMahon backstage in front of Jared Briscoe, Pat Patterson, and McMahon's then son, Shane. Hart also confronted Michaels backstage about the match finish. Many behind-the-scenes events leading up to the Montreal Screwjob were filmed for the documentary Hitman Hart, Wrestling with Shadows, which was released in 1998. However, WWE has described the Montreal Screwjob as the arguably most controversial, most jarring moment in the annals of sports entertainment. Hart's likeness would continue to be featured in WWF media media into 1998, including the title video of Raw, which is the brawling in ring within the warehouse thing, action figure for Slammer Series 1, and the Raw's WWF Warzone video game. So then he goes to WCW. So this is kind of intriguing. He had a 3-year contract with a salary of $2.5 million per year, in $1 million increase from his WWF contract, as well as a light schedule and measure of creative control over his television character. The day after the Survivor Series pay-per-view, Eric Bischoff, while within NWO, announced that Hart was going to be coming to WCW and joining the NWO. Hart made his debut on Nitro in December 15th, 1997. He was also involved in that month's Starrcade due to a 60-day no-compete clause from the WWF. He served as a special guest referee for the match between Bischoff and Larry Zbyszko, which that ends horribly. During the Sting versus Hulk Hogan, Hollywood Hogan, main event for the World Heavyweight Championship for WCW and Starrcade, he stepped in toward the conclusion of the match as an impromptu referee, declaring Sting the winner and new champion by submission, establishing Hart as a face in the process. In January, his no-compete clause expired, and his first feud in WCW was against Ric Flair. Makes sense. As most wrestlers consider themselves the greatest professional wrestlers of all time, Hart defeated Flair at Sold Out in his first WCW match. After this, he elected to defend the honor of WCW against NWO, defeating members like Bryan Adams in his first debut match of Nitro, Curt Hennig at Uncensored. In 1998, in April, he interfered in a Nitro main event between Hollywood Hogan, and Randy Savage, helping Hogan recapture the WCW World Heavyweight Championship, turning heel in the process. He became an associate of the NWO, but did not officially join the group. And then he competed in his second Nitro match, defeating Chris Benoit. Match at the Beach, he competed in his first championship match when he faced Booker for the television championship. Ended in DQ. He faced Diamond Dallas Page for the vacant United States Championship. Then he would lose the title to Lex Luger and then regain it the next night on Thunder. He was in the main event of Fall Brawl that year in the War Games match, which was the War Games where it was 3 teams of 3, and then it was just like, okay, well, whoever wins or whoever pins one person's like that person goes to face Goldberg and Halloween Havoc that year. I think like DDP pins Bret Hart to win that match, which was crazy. And then like he kind of turns face again, and then he turns heel again. And then he has the match with Sting at Halloween Havoc that year, which was a huge stinker. It's like his WCW run. It's like it was good for the like wrong reasons, I guess, if you want to call it that. Like when you think about Bret Hart, you think about his WWF run. Like the multiple world championships, the IC title that he had, the multiple tag team reigns that he's had, and then when he goes to WCW, it's like he has a good, like, does a good thing, but then like it was like all these injuries and all this bullshit. Like he aligns himself with Sting and helps out with against Hogan, but then like he turns heel and then turns face again, then turns heel again, and then turns face again, turns heel again. So it's just like it's just all this like crazy shit, and it's just like either it's like it's the Big Show equivalent of face heel turns with Bret Hart. Like he would lose the United States Heavyweight Championship to Roddy Piper of all people. Um, like like after he after he gets super kicked by Goldberg, it was just all downhill for that. Like all downhill for him. Like it sucks so much ass. Um so then um okay, so then this is like talking about the Goldberg thing where he spears Bret Hart, but he wears a metal breastplate underneath a Toronto Maple Leafs jersey. And then he says, "Hey Bischoff and the WCW, I quit." But in reality, he had sustained a groin injury at the hands of Dean Malenko and just needed time off. But I think that's kind of funny. Um, like he face like he teams with Hogan against Sting and Lex Luger. Um, and then he wrestles he wrestled Chris Benoit on an episode of Nitro labeled as the Owen Hart tribute match, which they faced probably before, but it's just like with the death of Owen Hart, you would think like Brad be like, okay, look, like he took some months off to be with his family, which that's a good thing that he did. But then you would think like the Owen Hart tragedy as a whole, you would be like, hey, let me just focus on that right now and not worry about the let me just not focus on wrestling. I mean, from what I've heard, the Owen Hart tribute match between Benoit and Bret Hart was actually decent. It wasn't bad, but it was decent. Um, and then he becomes world heavyweight champion. He does. Um, and then he wins the tag titles with Goldberg. Um, and then he defends the world championship against Goldberg. He gets hit with a thrust kick. Basically a super kick, resulting in several severe concussion. Hart later specified or speculated that he may have suffered up to 3 additional concussions within matches over the course of that day, along with the days immediately following Starrcade, having been unaware of the severity of his injuries. For example, Hart placed Goldberg on the post in a figure four leg lock, which ended with Hart hitting his head on the concrete floor, which when Goldberg failed to receive the move correctly. Which that was a very gnarly bump that he hits his head on. It was fucking crazy. Um, so the sum total of those injuries left Hart with post concussion syndrome and ultimately forced his retirement from professional wrestling. Hart later claimed that Goldberg had a tendency to injure everyone he had worked with. Okay, come on now. Um, as part of his DVD documentary, Hart expressed regret that someone as good-hearted as Bill Goldberg was responsible for hurting him. Referee Roddy Piper rang the bell when Hart had Goldberg in the sharpshooter. Although Goldberg did not submit, Piper simply walked away, leaving both Goldberg and Hart bewildered. And then, out of respect for Goldberg, he vacated the World Heavyweight Championship. Um, and then, he kind of, beats up Goldberg in the end and all that stuff. Um, man, it's just crazy. Um, so, his final WCW appearance occurred on the September 6, 2000 episode of Thunder in a promo where he had confronted Goldberg on the injury he had sustained 9 months prior. WCW terminated Hart's contract via FedEx letter on October 20th, 2000, due to his ongoing incapacity, and he announced his retirement from professional wrestling 6 days later on October 26, 2000. Hart and several critics considered his storylines during his tenure to be lackluster, which, I mean, that's fair. Former WCW wrestler Chris Jericho attributed this to backstage politics and creative mayhem. Hart cited his steel plate segment with Goldberg and his tribute match to Owen against Chris Benoit as his two worthwhile moments within WCW. He said he was proud to be a WCW World Heavyweight Champion for a short time prior to his injury. And then he's done, like, some wrestling appearances here and there and all that stuff. And then he was in the Hall of Fame the first time. And then, as the part of the Hart Foundation in 2019, and then as part of the um, um, uh, Stone Cold Bret Hart submission match thing last year. He had wrote a weekly column for the Calgary Sun from June 1991 to October 2004, which is crazy. He let's see. Hart dropped out of Mount Royal College in the late 1970s, but in 2018, at age 60, he had received an honorary degree from the institution, now university, a Bachelor of Health and Physical Education / Physical Literacy, that's cool. Like, hey, that's cool for him. Let's see. Like the Wrestling with Shadows thing, like I've said. A clip of Hart applying the sharpshooter to Benoit at WCW Mayhem in 1999 is featured in the opening credits of Malcolm in the Middle. That's actually kind of funny. And plus, like, he's been in, like, every, like, WWE game, like, from 92 to, like, 2024, and, like, 2K24. He was in 4 WCW games, and he was in all of the Legend of Wrestling games. Um, like, like I said, like, he's had multiple grievances with a lot of people over the years. Um, like, it's just crazy at this point, So I'm gonna try to go over this as much as possible, as much as I can. So starting with WCW, he is a two-time WCW World Heavyweight Champion, a four-time WCW United States Champion, a one-time WCW Tag Team Champion with Goldberg, and the fifth Triple Crown winner, Triple Crown Champion in WCW. So, five-time WWF champion, a one-time WWE United States champion. I know he beat Miz for that title. Two-time Intercontinental champion, two-time Tag Team champion, King of the Ring winner 2 times, Royal Rumble winner, into the Hall of Fame 3 times, the second Triple Crown champion 2 times, 5-time Slammy Award winner, and I mean, what is there to say? What is there to say? I mean, the feud that comes to mind when you think about Bret Hart is the one with Stone Cold Steve Austin. I mean, that's the one that comes to mind for me. But this is actually a really cool, look into Bret Hart. I would love to, kind of just watch more of his matches to see what he has done in the past. I know of all of his WWF stuff was good and crisp and very tight and knit. But his WCW stuff, he's starting to wind down a little bit, But that is to be for another day. But if you have made it to the very end of this video, we really do appreciate it. If you like what we do, subscribe to Reckless Paradise Podcast. It's free. Um, we do have stuff coming up in March, like I said. And if you want to follow us on all social media links in the description below, which will take you to our Linktree page, which will take you to our Instagram pages, Twitter pages, the podcast Reddit pages on there. On Reddit, I should say. And my gaming YouTube channel is on there. We are currently over 1,900 subscribers right now, which is in freaking insanity. And tonight's song of the night is going to be a Trace Atkins song. I know, Trace Atkins. Wow, that's probably a name we've never probably heard of in a million years. Um, Trace Atkins, yes. It is going to be Swing. There is a music video for it. And yeah, that's it. And I will see you guys in March. Peace.